This class is brought to you by the LA Care and Blue Shield Promise Community Resource Centers. The centers are a place to help you be active, healthy, and informed. We hope you enjoy this virtual class.
Hi kids, how are you? My name is Sonia Guzman. I hope you had a restful vacation, and if you are back in school, I hope that you are giving it your all. Thank you for joining me for today's healthy cooking class. Before I tell you what we are going to be making today, let's practice some basic cooking rules. Can you guess what those rules are? If you guess washing our hands, you are correct. But besides washing our hands, what we want to do is we want to pull our hair back, especially if we have long hair, and we want to roll up our sleeves if we are wearing anything with long sleeves to make sure that our clothing does not come into contact with our food. We're now ready to get going with our recipe. How many of you are familiar with corn dogs? So corn dogs are basically hot dogs, and they're coated in a corn batter, and they are deep fried. The recipe that we are going to be making today is similar to corn dogs, but with a little twist. So we're going to be making corn dogs, but we're going to be using chicken strips. So these chicken breasts are going to be cut into strips. And so because we're going to be using chicken breast instead of the hot dog, just for fun, we're going to be calling ours chicken dogs. So what we're going to do is we are going to take these chicken breasts, we're going to cut it into strips as I mentioned, and then we're going to coat them in a corn batter. So it's very similar to corn dogs, right? However, there is a bit of a difference. Our chicken dogs are going to be healthier because we are using chicken breasts, and we're not going to deep fry our chicken dogs, but we're actually going to just pan fry them. So we are going to fry them, but very lightly. We're not going to dip them in oil. So I'm excited about trying this today. I hope you are excited too. So the first thing that I'm going to do is tell you about all of the ingredients that you are going to need for today. And you don't have to worry about writing them down. At the end of this presentation, you will get the recipe. And so what you can do is with the cell phone, just take a picture of the recipe, and there you're going to have the list of ingredients as well as the instructions on how to make these chicken dogs. So the ingredients for today's class are chicken breasts, milk, egg, honey. Here I have garlic powder, salt and pepper, and then cornmeal with whole wheat flour. Now, what can you do if you don't like some of the ingredients, like for example, the honey? So I don't prefer honey, I don't want it to taste sweet. You can definitely omit the honey. Or if you don't want to use chicken breast, but you'd rather use chicken thigh or chicken leg, you can do that as well. If you'd like for your food to have a little kick, you can also add cayenne pepper to your flour, right? The flour and cornmeal. So there's really, you can do a lot of things with this recipe. You can be as creative as you want, adding flavors or removing flavors as well. So before we get started with cooking our chicken dogs, let's briefly talk about these here. You might have noticed them on my cutting board. These are called skewers, and these are made of wood. There are also skewers that are made of metal, and so we're going to be using these to make our chicken dogs. If you are familiar with corn dogs, they usually have a wooden stick so you can handle the corn dog and you can carry it with you and eat it. And so these are going to be the ones that we are going to be using for our chicken dogs. Okay? So once our chicken dogs are ready to be cooked, make sure that you have an adult help you if you are not old enough to be using the stove. Okay? So we want to make sure that this activity not only is fun, but it's also safe. So again, if you're not old enough to turn on the stove, to use the stove, make sure that an adult helps you with that task. Okay, so we've collected all of our ingredients, and hopefully by now you already washed your hands and you pulled your hair back and you rolled up your sleeves. So we are now ready to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and put on some gloves to cook with. Even though I washed my hands, I'm going to go ahead and do that for now. Now, I mentioned that because I have chicken breasts instead of chicken strips, I am going to be cutting it into strips. If this is the case for you as well, where you're going to be using a knife to cut your chicken into strips, again, if this is something that you cannot yet do comfortably, then ask an adult for help. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and cut my chicken into strips, and feel free to cut them into strips that are either thin or thick. Although you don't want to cut them too thin, right? Because you want to make sure that it's thick enough to hold on to the batter, and it's thick enough perhaps so you have like one per person. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut this into 3 strips. And then I am going to leave my strips here on my cutting board. Okay, so there's one. Now with my clean hand, I'm going to make some room by removing some of the other things that are on my cutting board. And so if you need to do that as well, make sure that you use the clean hand, okay? Because anything that comes into contact with raw chicken, the way that this glove is coming into contact with raw chicken, we don't want to use that, right, to touch all of the other things. We want to prevent what is called cross-contamination. And once I cut my chicken into strips, then I'm going to go ahead and insert the skewers. So again, clean hand, hold the skewer, take the chicken and just insert the skewer into the chicken like so. And I want to make sure that I get it all the way to the top so that when I lift it, it's able to hold on to the chicken, okay? It's helping support the chicken because it's cutting all the way across. Remember, if you by any chance touch the chicken with both hands, make sure that you wash your hands, okay? Now, I still have a clean hand, so what I'm going to do with this clean hand is I'm going to take my seasoning and I'm going to go ahead and season my chicken. And so, as I mentioned earlier, what I have here is garlic powder, salt and pepper. So I'm just going to take a little bit and season the first side of my chicken, like so. Just a little bit. And remember, the actual amounts of salt and pepper and garlic powder are going to be in the recipe. Okay, now, this side of the chicken has been seasoned, so now I'm going to go ahead and use, again, my clean hand to turn the skewers, okay, or my chicken dogs, from the stick. I'm going to use the stick to turn them because the stick is clean. And then I'm going to go ahead and season the other side. The flour and cornmeal mixture also has a little bit of seasoning, but you want to season the chicken directly while you have the opportunity, because that's how you're going to get the most flavor in here. So my chicken is now seasoned, so I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to remove my gloves, because remember, I touched raw chicken with this hand, so I don't want to use this glove to continue cooking. I'm going to go ahead and remove them at this point, and I'm going to wash my hands. So you go ahead and wash your hands again at this point, just to make sure that there is that you don't have any raw chicken on your hands. Okay, so we're going to move our chicken aside since that's ready to go. And now we are going to prepare our batter. So what we have here, as I mentioned, we have the cornmeal and it has some whole wheat flour. And then what I'm going to do in this bowl is combine the wet ingredients. And so what are considered the wet ingredients are the honey, milk, and the egg. So the first thing I'm going to do is lightly beat my egg. I'm going to crack it into the bowl. Egg is one of those other foods that also, if you come into contact with it, just like I did right now, you want to wash your hands before you continue touching everything else. So let me do that now. Okay, so then I'm going to take my whisk and I'm just going to lightly beat my egg. This is fun, right? To work with our hands, playing with our food, beating our eggs. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm going to add my milk. And then I'm also going to add my honey. Now for the honey, you can use a spatula to scoop it out a little bit faster. I might even be able to use my whisk to help me just kind of grab it out of the bowl, like so. Okay, there's my honey. I'm gonna go ahead and mix these together. And then what I'm gonna do, once they are mixed together, I'm gonna add my wet ingredients. Remember, these are the wet ingredients into what are called the dry ingredients. Now, in here, I have the cornmeal, I have the whole wheat flour, I also have baking powder, and I also have just a little bit of salt. Because remember, we added salt to our chicken, so we don't need to add a lot of salt to our flour and cornmeal mix. So I'm going to go ahead and add my wet ingredients into the dry. Now what I want to do is mix these together like so. And I want to create a batter, and I don't want it to be too thick. So if you notice that for whatever reason it feels that it's a bit thick, you can always just adjust by adding a little bit of milk. So this is looking good. Okay, our batter is ready. So see the consistency? It's a little bit runny, but not too runny. And so what we are going to do now is we are going to head over to our stove to cook our chicken dogs. So we're here at the stove ready to cook our chicken dogs. And so what I did is I placed a pan large enough so that the skewers fit completely. And I started adding oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue adding oil because what I want is to coat the bottom of the pan. Okay, make sure that it's all covered. Okay, so there's my oil, and I'm gonna go ahead and let that warm up, but I don't want it scorching hot because I want the chicken dog to cook from the center. I don't just want it to cook from the outside. So while that heats up, I'm gonna go ahead and start dipping my chicken dogs. And I want to do one at a time. And I also wanna make sure that I don't overcrowd my pan because I want them to cook completely without steaming, without coming into contact one with the other. So I am coating my chicken dogs. If you want to place your batter on a plate so that you can just dip these into the plate, you can definitely do that. Okay. My chicken dog is now ready, and I am going to place it gently into the pan. Remember, give it some space, so put that one there in that corner. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my next chicken piece, coating my second one here. And then I'm going to place this one also in the pan. I coated my chicken. I let it drip a little bit to make sure that it's not too thick. Just a coating. And I'm going to move on to the third piece. I think I could easily fit 3 in the pan without overcrowding. And then what I am going to do is repeat the process until I have cooked all of the chicken. So make a little bit of room. Turn these over. They cook fairly quickly. Place this one right in here without coming into contact with the one that has cooked on one side. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this one so that they fit a little bit better. Remember to keep the heat pretty low so that we give the chicken an opportunity to cook and we don't just get the batter to cook. So I'm turning it on all sides, make sure that it cooks the chicken inside, okay? And so again, if you need help with this, ask an adult to help you. So our first batch is ready. You can see them here. This is what they look like. Okay, now if the oil has reduced a little bit, you can go ahead and add a little bit more. So we are going to add just a little bit more to make our second batch. I'm going to go ahead and coat my first chicken dog here. Again, place it in the pan, giving it enough space to cook thoroughly. Okay. Okay, I've coated the chicken. Now I'm going to bring it over to my pan. I'm going to go for my second piece here. Repeat the process. And this is just enough batter. We actually made a good amount. It's just enough for our 6 pieces. Actually flip this one over, like that. Now remember that this batter has whole wheat flour. Whole wheat flour gives you fiber, so that's actually really good for you. And then the chicken gives you lots of protein. So the chicken is really good for you as well. Protein gives you energy. Protein keeps your body strong. And it also has what are known as amino acids, right? That's what creates the different proteins. And there's actually one that helps us improve our mood. So these chicken dogs should actually help us even help us feel happy, okay? So there are our last 3 chicken dogs. So we're gonna make some space here. Give them each their own space to cook. And then the batter that we have left, since we use it for dipping chicken, we're just gonna go ahead and throw this away. So I'm gonna flip these now. Give them a little bit of space. And what I'm doing is I'm actually turning them on all of their sides to make sure that they all cook properly. Because chicken is one of those things that we want to make sure that we do not leave raw. So our chicken dogs are now ready, as you can see, and we want to make sure that we eat them while they are still warm. There are many ways in which you can enjoy these, and my recommendation is that since this already has protein and it has a little bit of fiber and it has some carbohydrates, that you enjoy these with either a green salad or even a fruit salad, right? But a green salad would go perfect to make this a complete meal. But remember too, that this is also an opportunity for you to get creative. So whatever you want to accompany this with, it's really up to you. Now, our chicken dogs, you can enjoy these in many ways. You can have them with ketchup, you can have them with mustard, you can mix the two together if you want to do that. You could even have it with some marinara sauce if you wanted to get creative, make it more of an Italian flavor. you can do that as well. If you want to enjoy your chicken dogs with something like a marinara sauce, make sure that you look at the list of ingredients to ensure that it doesn't have any added sugar. So here's what the list of ingredients looks like. With that, we have reached the end of our cooking class. When you are ready to make your own chicken dogs, remember to enjoy them with a salad or a side of fruit. That's going to help you make your meal even more nutritious. Thank you so much for joining me. We look forward to seeing you virtually again next week and at one of our resource centers as soon as we can. Until then, stay active, healthy, and informed.